Hey, I'm Grant with Grant's Game Rex. Welcome to my new monthly series on the best new editions of board games hitting retail. The world of board games is getting much older these days, and I don't just mean Monopoly and things like that have been around for a long time, but even the world of modern board games is getting pretty long in the tooth. In my opinion, the world of modern board games really sort of started with Catan, but Catan came out almost 30 years ago. It's pretty wild to think about that. And so we've had time to re-release new editions of games. You know, it doesn't even have to be games from 100 years ago. Some of them are games from 5 years ago, 10 years ago, things like that. But, you know, we're bringing new editions, making some rule changes, maybe changing the art, changing the look, making it look cool. And so it felt worthy of its own video to me because there's starting to be more and more of these new editions of board games hitting retail. And, you know, to me, retail means, yes, friendly local game stores, but it also means online marketplaces or through the publisher's website. Basically, any place you can go and get the game easily and immediately. I want to cover games that you can go out and get now, so these are the best new editions of board games hitting retail in July 2023. Alley Cat Games is releasing Amun-Re 20th Anniversary Edition. So, you know, happy birthday, Amun-Re. You one more year and you can drink some booze. So, you know, you're getting so close. 20 years, though. That's pretty exciting. This is a game from Reiner Knizia, and it's an auction and an area control game. So you are bidding for spots on the board and then building pyramids once you control these areas. And, you know, in the auctioning, if someone overbids you, then you have to go to a different area and bid for that. So if you like bidding, auction, sort of area control games, you know, Amun-Re is a very good one, one that's been pretty beloved for sure for, you know, 20 years now. And this new edition, yeah, it's got some new look, but the main thing that this new edition adds is it can be played with 2 players now. The original game was a 3 to 5 player game, and now there is the 20th anniversary edition features new modules that can be added to the game. The Officials variant can be played with 2 or 3 players. There's an Afterlife expansion that adds a 4th item you can buy in the market phase, tomb tiles. There's a Statues expansion where grand statues are added to certain provinces. And there's a Pharaoh mini expansion, which adds tension to the auction phase by rewarding players for overbidding other players. So, you know, the classic Reiner Knizia game is coming out again here from Alley Cat Games. Certainly like a medium weight game, plays in about 90 minutes. So check that out. Ares Games is releasing a new edition of The Rich and the Good. This is a game where you are playing as stockbrokers during the Second Industrial Revolution, and you're trying to make as much money as possible. But the reason it's called The Rich and the Good is you also have to donate to charity. You don't want to just seem like this rich jerk. You got to be like, okay, I'll give some of this money back, you know, how rich people do. You know, I'm sure it's not always altruistic. Sometimes it's just to make themselves look even better. But, you know, in the game, so if you want to have the most money at the end of the game. But if you have spent the least on charity, if you've given the least back, you can't win even if you have the most money. So the other interesting thing about the game is that each player has some information on how the stocks are going to change. So you have a little bit of insider information. So you're trying to use that information to predict, you know, what to sell off, what to buy, all that sort of stuff. You're trying to manipulate the stock prices to make yourself more money. This is another one where the original game was 3 to 5 players, but this new edition allows for 2 players. So it's almost like everybody was like, wow, with a global pandemic, we should have 2-player versions of some of these games because sometimes you can't leave the house and you just want to play with your significant other or your kid or whoever it may be. And so I think we are definitely seeing a lot more games that prioritize solo or two-player modes in the game. So that's one of the main things that this new version of The Rich and the Good from Ares is doing. This is a 45-minute game and sort of in that lower medium weight genre category classification, whatever you want to call it. Asmodee and Catan are releasing Catan Soccer Fever, and this for sure should have been in my expansions video, but I messed up and I put it in this one instead. So, I'm still figuring it out, still figuring out how to split the two categories and stuff. So you get a little bonus expansion now in this video, because what this is it basically adds a whole soccer element to the game of Catan. Whenever anybody builds a settlement or city, it starts a match day on the island, and you have to try to win soccer matches. And if you win soccer matches, you get benefits and special abilities and things like that. And so all you have to do is, after somebody builds something, then you set up this little field and you have to flick your soccer ball at the goalie, and if it lands color side up, it's a goal, and if it doesn't, it's not a goal, and you are just trying to have the most goals to win the match. So adds a silly flicking element to the game of Catan. So I don't know, it's a very lighthearted, silly thing to add into the game. So if you want, if you've always felt like, there's something missing in Catan, and that thing missing is flicking, well, this has you covered. All right? Yeah. Asmodee and Zygomatic are releasing Timeline Twist. So Timeline is a, fairly simple family weight card game where all the cards are historical events, and you are trying to put them into a timeline in the right order. And so you put a card down, you think, I think this came after this, so you flip it over, see what the date is on the back, and whoever can get their cards out wins. Well, in Timeline Twist, the reason it's a twist is because it is now making it a cooperative challenge. So instead of an individual player trying to predict where in history this thing happened, you now can talk together about it, and you are trying to play all your cards as a team. You want to get 36 cards out there and try to not mess up, and if you could do that, you win as a group together. So, again, very lightweight, family weight sort of thing, but it's a good teaching tool if you want to, make history fun for your kids or things like that. And this is probably an even better way to do it, since you can do it cooperatively, and, you can help your kids out if you need to. So, yeah, Timeline Twist. Asmodee and Matago are releasing St. Patrick. This was a game that was first released as Salvage. It was called Salvage, but now it is being re-released now as St. Patrick. It is a trick-taking card game. So they say it combines the fun of hearts with the assessment of oh hell and the fairness of duplicate bridge. So sort of pulling stuff from a bunch of different card games and pushing them into this St. Patrick game. So I don't know why it's called St. Patrick, except for it's green and has got St. Patrick on the cover. I don't know why that is, but it is. So in the game, everyone starts at 20 points and takes damage over the course of play, and when the first player is eliminated, whoever has the most points still wins. It does the same thing that a lot of trick-taking games do, where you have to predict how many tricks you are going to win for that hand. And, we mentioned taking damage. You only take damage for the amount of tricks you win more than what you bid, more than you predict. And so, your prediction is an insurance policy for you. But if everyone's combined bids equal the total amount of damage that can be taken, then everyone loses the amount they bid. So there is like a, oh no, what are you gonna go for here? I hope you're not gonna go for too much. So if you like trick-taking card games, then check out St. Patrick. Brotherwise Games is releasing Boss Monster 10th Anniversary Edition. So congratulations, Boss Monster and Brotherwise Games. You know, Boss Monster is certainly the game that like put Brotherwise on the map, and they have a lot of great games since then, but this game is still doing very well for them. It is a card game where you are building a dungeon, and you can put rooms and you can put bosses in your dungeon, and then heroes are going to be sort of coming through your dungeon, and hopefully you hit them enough to kill them and keep their soul. You're trying to eliminate them as they move through your dungeon. And so in the 10th Anniversary Edition, the things that this is it's doing, there are new room cards that are added to the game and 4 new bosses that are added to the game. So if you've liked Boss Monster, you know, this is a chance to get more stuff for it, and a chance to, you know, celebrate 10 years. It's hard to get anything 10 years. There are plenty of games that aren't printed for 10 years. You know, there are plenty of games that have like an initial print run and then never get printed again. And sometimes it's frustrating because you're like, this game's amazing. Why is nobody checking it out? So it's a real big deal to be printed for 10 years. So yeah, I mean, good job, Boss Monster. You should feel good about yourself. Funko Games is releasing Star Trek Cryptic. So the Cryptic line is a new line that they have started of escape room style puzzle games. These are games where you gotta you know, figure out different puzzles and figure out and move the story forward and solve things to win the game. They came out with a Indiana Jones Cryptic a few months ago, and so that sort of started the line. Well, this is a Star Trek one, so, you know, it's basically escape room, but with Star Trek theme. So do you like Star Trek? Do you want story in your escape rooms? Then that's the reason you're going to get Star Trek Cryptic. You know, they do say it plays 1 to 99 players, so it's basically like play it with however many people you want to play it with. I personally like playing escape room type games with like 3 or 4 people, I think is the best number, because solo, I'm too dumb to figure it out on my end. On my own, but you know, if there's like 8 people, that's just too many cooks in the kitchen. Okay, we gotta settle on something. We gotta figure something out. We gotta move forward. So 3 or 4 people is perfect for me. Cosmos is releasing Exit the Game Advent Calendar, The Silent Storm. So they have a series of these advent calendars, and they have a series of exit games as well, and this is sort of combining. So what it is essentially it is an escape room, a puzzle solving thing, but it happens over 24 days. You know, like an advent calendar, instead of opening it and getting a piece of chocolate, now you open it and get a piece of information. Is that disappointing or is that better? You get to decide. So yeah, I mean, you are solving a puzzle over 24 pieces of information, and so you are unraveling the mystery and trying to figure it out. The Silent Storm, this is a specific storyline. I don't know what the story of the Silent Storm is. You're going to have to play it to figure it out. You're going to have to do it if you're interested in it. You know, exits are fun small box escape room style games, and now this makes it a much bigger box sort of thing because you're going to be opening stuff up and getting information. So they've had a few of these advent calendars, but you know, here's a new one for you to check out. Looney Labs is releasing Fluxx the board game. So Fluxx is a card game system that is known fairly well. There's a lot of different versions of Fluxx at this point, and all of them are basically themed to different things. I think my personal favorite is Monty Python Fluxx because I'm a huge Monty Python fan, but they've got, zombie Fluxx and math Fluxx and most of the things you can think of, they probably have a Fluxx version of it. Well, in 2013, they released Fluxx the board game. This is a new edition of Fluxx the board game that makes it into a much smaller box. So I should have said probably that the thing that sets Fluxx the card game apart is that the rules are constantly changing. There's always differences in terms of how many cards you can play, how many cards you can draw, how many cards you can keep in your hand, what's the win condition. It changes all the time, and so it's wild and chaotic and fun if you like a little bit of chaos in your games. So Fluxx the board game does the same thing. Instead of just cards, there is now a board out here, and you are moving around the board trying to get to certain spots, and getting to certain spots will allow you to keep these goal cards, and you need a certain amount of goal cards to win the game. It's the same thing as Fluxx the card game in that the rules can constantly change. Now you keep track of it with a pegboard. There's literally like, okay, now we can play this many cards. Now we can move this many spots. Now we're allowed to move tiles around, that sort of thing. So it's a modular board with tiles. The original Fluxx board game came in a fairly big box. Well, one of the things that this new edition does is put it into a much smaller box, which I think was a well done thing. I'm looking because I have, here you go. So here is the Fluxx board game. Now you can see the new box that they did it in. So it's still a very transportable game like the card game, but now there's a board element and you are moving around, and instead of keeper cards, you have leaper cards that allow you to leap to specific spots on the modular board of tiles. So if you like Fluxx, then check out Fluxx the board game for sure. Ravensburger is releasing Disney Villainous Introduction to Evil. So this is not that different in terms of Disney Villainous, but the whole idea of this is they streamline gameplay for first-time players. So if you've never played Disney Villainous before, this might be a good place to start because it's made for you. This is made with you in mind. Instead of having 6 villains, there's only 4 villains in the game, and they are some of the classic villains that have been in other villainous games: Maleficent, Captain Hook, Ursula, and Prince John. So if you haven't played the Disney Villainous games before, it's basically you get to play as the bad guys in the game, and that's it's always fun to be the bad guy. And it's a lighter asymmetric game. I mean, that's one of the things. If you want an introduction to asymmetric games, all of the characters play differently, have different special abilities, and actually have different win conditions as well. So it's a fun game for sure. And this, if you haven't played it before, this is a good place to jump into the series. If you have played it before, this is not very different in terms of gameplay, just a little bit of streamlining. It does have this new cool box design, the box art. So, is that enough for you to get it? I don't know. That's up for you to decide. Renegade Game Studios is releasing new editions of some very classic games. They're releasing Axis and Allies 1914 this month. So Axis and Allies is a very, very big war game where it takes a long time and you are fighting each other and trying to control a board. And so this 1914 version set it in terms of like right as World War I started. And it came out a long time ago. So this version includes more German and British Empire infantry units. It includes 30 more chips, and it includes rulebook updates, fixing any spelling errors and any mess ups that the original rulebook had. And so it's also got an extra large 34 by 32 game board for a greater play experience. So if you felt like Axis and Allies wasn't big enough, well, now it's even bigger. So, if you like war games, Axis and Allies is one of the most classic war games out there. And so this new edition from Renegade Game Studios. Renegade is also releasing a new edition of Acquire. This is a game that, came out over 50 years ago at this point, and so it's been around for a long time. It is a game where you are you're making businesses, but you're not actually owning any of the businesses. You are investing in stock for the different businesses. So you are trying to be a real estate tycoon, and you're making these hotel chains, and then investing in the hotel chains you think are going to do best, and then they can merge, and you get bonuses and things like that. And so this new edition of Acquire, there have been a lot of editions over the years, but this is the current new one. It's got an updated board size. It's also got new font on the tiles for improved legibility. And it's got both a classic mode and a tycoon mode in the box. So you can play the way it was originally designed, or you can play without tertiary stockholder merger bonuses. So if you've always wanted to get into Acquire, here's your chance to do that. Renegade is also releasing a new edition of Diplomacy. This is another game that's like, I'm 60 years old at this point. I don't even know how old it is. It's older than 50 years, that's for sure. And, it's a classic negotiation game. If you want negotiation in your games, well, Diplomacy is like the negotiation game. It is a war theme as well. It takes place prior to World War I, and you play as 7 great European powers engaged in a struggle for supremacy. And so you are making deals with other people, you are attacking people, alliances will be broken, you will be betrayed, but you are just trying to outmaneuver the other people in the game. There are shifting borders and altering empires. This version, this new edition, comes with new quick start rules. It also has 140 updated wooden meeples to represent fleets and armies, and but the gameplay is still the same. So again, if this is another one, if you've always wanted to try Diplomacy, well, this is your new starting point here. Looks good and keeps the same classic gameplay. Van Ryder Games is releasing Gourmet popcorn dice. This is a re-implementation of a game that came out a couple years ago called Popcorn Dice. And Popcorn Dice is just a push-your-luck dice rolling game. You are rolling dice and trying to get popcorns that have popped and trying to avoid getting burnt popcorn. If you have any kernels, you have to throw them back in and re-roll those ones. And so you can keep rolling, but as you get more burnt popcorn, you risk losing all the points that you have. And so it's just a classic dice rolling game. Well, Gourmet popcorn dice adds in these colored dice to the game. The first game that was all just these yellow dice, well, now there are different colored dice, and so if you roll the same 2 colors, if they have the same faces on the die, well, now you can get a bonus. So there are bonus points for rolling pairs of dice in the game. So, it's the same sort of push your luck dice rolling game, but now there's an extra way to score some points and a little bit of variety in the way the dice look because there are a bunch of different colors. So yeah, those are the best new additions hitting retail in July. Let me know if this worked for you. I mean, again, like I said, there are a lot of different new editions coming out, so it felt worth sort of making its own video for it. So I hope this is useful for you. So now I'll have the best new games hitting retail, the best expansions hitting retail, and the best new additions hitting retail. I'm the retail guy, apparently. That's not what I originally set out to do, but these videos are useful to people, and I'm happy to be useful to the community here. So they take a lot of research to do, but I like helping people find games out there. So thanks so much for watching. Please like and subscribe and share these videos. It's very helpful to me. And thanks again. I'm Grant with Grant's Game Rex.